There are some things about America which are simply perplexing for Australians. Sometimes it just comes down to figuring out what it is that they're saying because they use a different word for something, or they pronounce something in an entirely different way. For example, having heard mention of buoys on American channels so many times, I couldn't figure out for the life of me what a buoy was. Finally, I figured it out having seen an image of what they called a buoy. This is what we call in Australia a buoy. It is derived from the word buoyant, meaning to float. Hence the reason we call it a buoy, not a buoy. Then there's food. Sometimes food is exactly the same, just with a completely different name. Like what we call capsicums, Americans call bell peppers. Other times, there are foods that, well, I've never heard of and never encountered before. So, I came across a post where someone had taken a photo of their breakfast and commented that they love grits. What's grits? I'd never heard of them before. So I looked them up. And apparently they're a coarse kind of porridge-like dish made from ground maize or hominy. Well, that didn't help at all. So they are like porridge. They look a bit like porridge, but they're coarse. But what's maize and what's hominy? Maize. Oh, okay, maize is corn. Why is it called maize? Is there a difference between corn and maize? Or is it just that Americans call corn maize? It's not a term that we use here in Australia. And I know I've heard it mentioned when people talk about Thanksgiving, but I'd never really tried to figure out what it was. And what about hominy? I've never even heard of hominy. Time to look that up. Hominy is dried corn, or if you're American, it's dried maize, soaked in lye or in a lime solution. So it's anemic corn, really. What's lye? I've heard that mentioned before too, but we don't talk about lye in Australia. Time to look that up. Okay, lye is caustic soda. You're kidding me, right? You use caustic soda in cooking. That's stuff that if you touch it, it burns your hands. What does it do to your insides? I'm kind of confused now. Obviously, you would have to use a very, very diluted amount of lye to make your hominy. But even still, I would have some reservations about eating it. Now, I will say, I don't like porridge or mushy stuff. So I probably wouldn't like grits. And the name kind of puts me off anyway. When we talk about stuff that's gritty in Australia, if we say our food's gritty, it means there's stuff in it that shouldn't be in it. And that's what it brings to mind for me. So, I'm confused. How do you know if your grits contain ground corn or ground hominy? Is there a difference? Am I missing something here? Now, I will admit that I like creamed corn. But I'm guessing that is an entirely different thing to having grits. I don't think I've really answered any of my questions here. Thanks for listening. Please hit the like button. And if you're not already subscribed, please subscribe and leave a comment below. Do you agree with my definitions of these terms, or do you have a different idea of how these terms do actually translate?